Hello, my friends. Welcome to another More Movies Weekly. This one is number 45.
I got a loaded 45 here. You got pimples.
Hello there, film freaks, movie maniacs, and cinema sickos. This is More Movies Weekly. My name is Greg Fisher. His name is David Roberts, and this is the podcast where we like to talk about all things cinema, movies, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean. How's it going, Dave?
I'm pretty good, sir. I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm all the better for seeing you, my good buddy. Well, this year is the 50th anniversary of one of the greatest films ever made. It's The Godfather. So let's talk about it. Okay, so it was made in 1972, 50 years ago. 50 years ago, can you believe it? One of the most celebrated films of all time, considered by many to be one of the greatest gangster films. Some people say Goodfellas, some people say The Godfather. They're both pretty good. The Godfather and The Godfather 2, because, you know, it's kind of like Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. They're both so well revered and well loved that, you know, they're kind of seen as one. But yeah, the first film, Marlon Brando, Robert Duvall, Al Pacino, James Caan, Talia Shire, so many, you know, great actors and actresses in it. It's 50 years old. They've just put it back on the big screen again. So they've cleaned it up a bit, 4K'd it, put it up on the big screen, people to see. Iconic. When did you first see it?
Oh, maybe it was about 16, 17, something like that was when I first saw The Godfather. It was a bit later on. I'd already seen things like Goodfellas and stuff a bit earlier. But I was a little bit older when I saw Godfather, which is probably good because it is a bit more of a more nuanced and slower film than something like Goodfellas, which is a
bit more modern.
It's quick and modern, yeah. But yeah, an absolute classic, as you say, it is. I mean, it's the second greatest film of all time if we go by the AFI list and the poll list. It's usually behind Citizen Kane. It's in the National Film Registry. You know, most lists have it on there within the top 3 or 4. It's in there generally, isn't it? And we won Best Picture. But it's interesting as well because one of the films that not only was it critically acclaimed and has been for years, it was also, in terms of box office, an absolute smash hit. Yeah. It was the best grossing film of the year. For a time, it was the best grossing film of all time. Obviously, by now it's been taken over many times by other films, but still up there as one of the biggest grossing films as well. A lot, you know, a bit like the book, really, because it was based on Mario Puzo's novel.
Ever read it?
I've never read it. Yeah, I've known a few people who have read it. I've never got around to doing it, which I should do one day. But that was also one of the best-selling novels, isn't it?
Just to see how, you know, it differs from the film, because I read it years after I'd seen the film, just to see the differences in it. And I'd probably read a magazine piece about, you know, what was left out of it and stuff like that. And one of the things that got me interested in reading it, you know, the character of Luca Brasi, the enforcer, the hitman guy, the big fella, his character in the book is dark as. I mean, there's things like him throwing babies into a furnace and stuff like that. It's like stuff you would never have in the film. Exactly, no. You know. It's grim enough as it is. It's pretty grisly sort of subject matter. But when you read the book, it's like, oh, I see why they left that out.
Yeah.
It's one of those, for me, it's like they always say the book is better than the film. And most of the time that's true, but not in the case of The Godfather for me.
No, because I think so much about the film is about more than the story. Almost,
yeah.
It's like a myth. So you know, obviously, yeah, 50 years have just re-released it. To mention, you know, re-mention that point, they've done a celebration at the Oscars, which was really nice. They did a video package, and of course, De Niro, Pacino, and Francis Ford Coppola came out on stage, and they gave a little speech, which was really nice. Although I did think they're looking a bit old now, aren't they? At this point,
well, they are. Bless them. They're all getting on like into their 70s, and towards 80, I suppose, you know.
Yeah. They've put out this new release. They've cleaned it up again. It's not the first time that's happened, but you know, it still looks beautiful.
Yeah,
and I think
it was Gordon Willis shot it, wasn't it? And he's like the master of shooting in low light.
Yeah,
because there's so many, you know,
one of the things I wanted to mention. The cinematography on this is really the most iconic thing about it, probably.
Yeah,
exactly.
It was a period film. It was filmed in the 70s, but it's obviously based just after the war, I think, you know, late 40s into the 50s there.
50s, yeah.
So I think the cinematography had to in some way emulate that kind of time period. And that's what I mean, shooting in low light and, you know, certain things about it that just sort of smacked of that time, you know.
Well, it's interesting because they made a distinctive kind of point at the outset when they were filming the film of saying we're not going to use helicopters or modern filmmaking techniques.
Yeah,
they were going to shoot very static. They want it to look like a painting was the kind of premise, which makes sense. You know, you want to invoke as you say, the more, you know, an older aesthetic and also like this Italian influence, artistry, and stuff like that. So it makes a total load of sense. But also, obviously, they wanted this dark look, and the blacks are so black in this film. It's so like if you get a good screen to watch it on of a good copy, it's so crushed and saturated. But they deliberately cranked the cameras down, and when they processed it in a certain way, very deliberately to get that yellow tone. Yeah, it's very famous for the golden yellow tone. It's really dark and that beautiful tone, and it looks fantastic for it. But they kind of deliberately did it in the first place, so that the film would come out how they imagined it to look, to stop any studio interference on, you know, the look of the film or anything like that. They're like, no, we're going to make it.
Because that was one of the things that was so famous about it, that Coppola had such a hard time making it. He had a hard time off the studios. They didn't want to use Brando. They didn't want to use Al Pacino. That's why at the Oscars, when they did the little tribute, he said, actually, I need to acknowledge Robert Evans, who's now passed away, but the famous producer Robert Evans at the time, he was the in-between guy between the money men and the artist, being Coppola, and there was probably a little bit of friction over the years, but he's actually sort of acknowledged him like all these years later to say the film wouldn't have got made without him, which is cool.
Which is really
and
nice.
If people want to know more about Robert Evans, you should see the documentary The Kid Stays in the Picture, which is a documentary about him because he's a fascinating character. He's kind of one of those sort of Hollywood man about town playboy types, really. A bit of a star himself, a bit like Bogdanovich, that he wasn't just a film producer. He was a kind of a star. He's like, hi, I'm Robert Evans, and I'm going to present this movie to you, you know. And very interesting character, very great documentary. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Nice that Coppola mentioned him, I thought. But yeah, you know, they didn't want Brando because Brando would become, by that point, his star had faded considerably by the 70s, but also I think he was seen as a problem. He was seen as a problematic guy, and they thought, you know, I didn't want him.
Well, I think that's the thing. The film really revived Brando's career, essentially, because in the 50s he was the guy, Streetcar Named Desire and all that, you know, he had all that acclaim, but then in the 60s he really went off the tail end a bit and did some really crap films. He tried directing, and that didn't go very well. And as you say, you've been problematic with certain people.
I do love One-Eyed Jacks, by the way. I think it's brilliant.
But it tanked at the box office, and he did a string of films. Then he turned down loads of roles which would have made money. And he became one of those people, which he always has been throughout his career, that cantankerous for people to work with. You know, and you know, so you can see why they probably didn't want to, but you know, he makes the film.
There's no doubt he's great in it. It's such an iconic role. I mean, people do, if they do an impression of Marlon Brando, it probably is the, I'll make him an offer, can't refuse.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
The music's incredible as well. It's iconic. You got various themes there that are just, you know, you just hear a couple of notes from you know.
I always saw it as like an allegory of the American dream and a kind of pointed finger at the illusion of it all. Perfectly demonstrated with, Italian immigrant family getting into a life of crime to exploit the kind of commercialism and capitalism of American society, the essential elements of the American dream. But, realizing that the dream is actually a nightmare, by the end of it.
Sure.
So I kind of always saw it as a kind of very pointed finger at American society.
Doubtless that is
through the kind of metaphor of this family.
Ever tell anybody outside the family what you're thinking again?
Oh, so many iconic moments in it as well.
Yeah.
And you got, Robert Duvall, I think he's brilliant in the first two films, and they always say the third one isn't quite as good. And for me, one of the big reasons for that is that Duvall wasn't part of it, and he should have been, really, because Tom Hagen, that whole character, I think, is like kind of an important character to it all.
But we've both seen, of course, over the years, the various cuts of The Godfather that have been done for television.
Yeah. The chronological one that goes all the way through, yeah.
So
That's
they
got extra stuff
all
in it. Yeah. That's an interesting one.
Plenty of material over the years. In fact, there is a version we have seen 9 hours long of the Godfather trilogy with lots of extra bits in, which does make entertaining viewing. But yeah, nothing beats that original piece of historical cinema, does it? It is such an iconic milestone.
But there we go. That's our thoughts on The Godfather, 50 years since its release. Have you seen it on the big screen? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts about it. Are you fans of this iconic movie as much as we are? Always great to chat to people about these films and enthuse about them. That's what we are, film enthusiasts. So, let us know.
So, in movie news this week, we've got a couple of bits. The first is a very sad story that's just come out about Bruce Willis. Of course, most famous for Die Hard, probably, but in loads of amazing films over the years. But he's basically retiring or stepping away from acting after he's been diagnosed with aphasia, which is a condition that affects the ability to speak and write, which obviously doesn't really work when you're an actor, I guess. So kind of sad news there, really.
Yeah, definitely.
For old Bruce.
Yeah, it is. It's really sad. Horrible to hear of anyone having to go through anything like that. But he also seems a little bit young as well to be checking out. Because, a lot of people of his contemporaries, his age, are still making movies, that have been as famous as he is. Seems a bit of a shame that he's had to throw his chips in and say that's it.
Yeah, 67. So, not amazingly young, but still, probably a few more years left, considering, as you say, other people who carry on, into their 80s.
Well, look at, Anthony Hopkins,
Yeah, and Michael Caine and people like that. Keep on going on. And so, it's a shame. And I think it's one of them things of, having to give it up not on your terms. I always think that with like sports stars and stuff where they're like forced into early retirement and stuff like that. That's never how you want, if your career is in something like that. You never want to be forced.
No.
There's a few films scattered throughout in more recent years where you go, well, he did okay there. And he could have done something, if he'd maybe been picked to be in a Nolan movie or something. I don't know. I
think the thing I like about him, back in the 80s in like Die Hard and stuff, he's the action guy, but he's the everyman. He didn't have like super big muscles like Arnie or Sylvester Stallone or these other guys that rose to fame in the 80s and 90s as the action guys. Bruce was like the everyman. He was like, wisecracking, like I say, not in the best shape of his life, but he could do the job. And it was more his personality shone through that was the entertaining part of his characters. But I find in the last, 15, maybe 20 years, he's he's gone the opposite way. He's tried to be that more sort of bulky, bald-headed sort of I'm a tough guy, and it's kind of like actually we loved you because you were kind of like more lovable, more sort of like Uncle Bruce.
Can we do a formal introduction here?
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think and it is kind of the split of his career. The stuff 80s, 90s was great, and then it's more recently not been as good. But that was definitely it. He was the everyman actor. He was Hollywood's go-to guy for that, and
quite good with comedy. You see, because he started out, he rose to fame with Moonlighting.
Yeah.
And he did a very funny film. Most people probably have forgotten now, called Blind Date. I think it had Kim Basinger in it, and it was like his first sort of major movie, and it's dead funny. It's really good. Like again, that sort of comedy element to it all, and obviously he did Die Hard after that, and that was it. Then he was always forever John McClane. But
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
All the best to him.
Say. All the best, Brucey.
And another quick story that's come out this week is about ticket prices. The often hated kind of part about the cinema that it's been highly debated for years and years and years. But high ticket prices for the Batman, basically, which has drove a lot more money to the cinemas. Of course, they've put the prices up because it's a big new film, and but people have still gone and seen it because it's the Batman. They want to go watch it. So big money coming into the cinemas. But, experts are pointing out that this is a big risk to take, because this is making audiences kind of guess, second guess, the price of a ticket with the value of the film they're going to see.
It's a bit cheeky, I think.
It is. The same thing.
We noticed it because we went to see the Batman, and it was like, oh, these tickets, have they put the prices up? But we'd been not long beforehand, and it was like the usual price, and then go to see the Batman, it's like £1 or £2 more, and you think, hey? Yeah. And then we found out that it was actually done as a thing.
And they did the same thing with Spider-Man as well, which we didn't see it as much because we watched it later on in its run, where I think the prices had dropped. But people who I knew had seen it at the beginning of it, it was the higher price.
So that's how they're doing it, are they? It's kind of like there's a premium price for the first couple of weeks of its run to try and guarantee it pulling its money back at box office, and then with something like Batman or Spider-Man, it's going to be in the theaters for a while. They drop it down to normal price after a while. I'm
guessing so. I don't have like a concrete evidence of that, but it seems to be what's happening.
Sure.
Which also probably ties in with the fact is when the films come out, I noticed near enough every screen in the place is full of it. So for the first week of the Batman, every screen they've got, you can't get to watch another film, or struggle to. And then kind of they reduce the screen sizes because they know the demand is less. And it's this thing we've talked about before about it's that problem of big films dominating the cinema chains and other smaller films not getting in.
Yeah.
And we're obviously competing with we're competing with streaming platforms and stuff now, and it's
it might be as well something to do with trying to claw back some money after the pandemic, with nobody going out to the theaters, especially for that first lockdown, that first period where people were only everywhere was shut, you couldn't go anywhere anyway. Everybody will have suffered for that. So it seems like that's why I see how I see all the prices going up everywhere as is. It's basically big companies trying to claw back some of the money they will have lost while everybody had to stay at home and do nothing.
Yeah, I think the one of the things they're talking about is the box office numbers that they've had in for films, even like Spider-Man. It grossed $800 million, but that's apparently still not enough money to make up for the revenue that is lost. They've only made about 57% at the same period pre-pandemic. So although we've seen individual runs of good revenue. We've mentioned on the podcast before during Spider-Man and stuff. It's still not in the big picture up to par yet. So how it claws that back again? Say we talk about streaming services and stuff. It'd be an interesting to see where they go. Really.
Well, I'll leave this section with Gordon Gekko and his famous quote.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
That just leaves us enough time to tell you about what we've been up to elsewhere on the internet this week. That means our website or here on our YouTube channel. So we did a reaction video to Top Gun Maverick, which is the sequel to the 1986 Tom Cruise movie, which is coming out this summer. Dave and I have watched the theatrical trailer and reacted to that. So if you're interested to see our thoughts on Top Gun Maverick, then the video is linked in the description below.
Absolutely, and I've done a review of Drive My Car, one of the films nominated for Best Picture and picked up Best International Picture at the Oscars. That's a Film and 5 review right here on the YouTube channel and, of course, on the website. Link in the description down below.
We also have an article on the website. Something we like to do quite often is our top 5 of any given director. We've got loads of them up there. At the moment, we've got Paul Thomas Anderson, we've got Spike Lee, we've got Tarantino, we've got Scorsese, Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, Christopher Nolan. Loads of them already up there. This week's article is our top 5 Terrence Malick films. So if you're a Terrence Malick fan, go and check out our top 5, see what you think. Let us know in the comments. There's a link in the description below.
And if you want to listen to this podcast in audio-only format, maybe when you're out for a jog or when you're cooking up in the kitchen, you can listen to us on all the major podcast platforms. That's Apple Music Plus, Spotify, etc. We've got a link down in the description below with all the information.
And why not join us on social media? We are at More Movies For You on most of the platforms there. So come and say hi to us on Twitter or Instagram or something. We also have a Discord server, so you can have a live chat with us over there. All of these links, again, are down in the description.
And if you enjoy what we're doing and would like to support us, then you can hop on over to buymeacoffee.com and buy us a latte or cappuccino. That really helps us. You can make a donation, helps us keep the light on, helps us make our content here. Or you can jump over to Patreon and subscribe to one of the packages where you get to vote on some of the content we make here and see some exclusive content. The links for all of this are in the description down below.
But otherwise, my friend, I think that's it this week. 45 is done, dusted, put into a box, taped up, and sent out with the rest of the Amazon packages to the internet and the rest of the universe. Any final thoughts before we go, my friend?
Well, just make sure the package with the horse's head is delivered to the correct bed and put on the correct pillow, okay?
Absolutely not a problem, my friend. You've chosen wisely.
That's it for this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And remember to like, share and subscribe right here on YouTube. For more film reviews and articles, check out our website moremovies.co.uk. And join us on social media at More Movies For You. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all across the board. You know the score. If you enjoy what we do, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on one of our packages on Patreon. The links are in the description down below. And for more filmtastic content, click one of the buttons on screen now.